Hey, this is Ish, and in today's talk, I'm going to be going over why you need to unplug from society in order to find your true self. And this doesn't really mean to go on an eat, pray, love journey either, but rather you can use the qualities of isolation and also discernment in order to find out what you genuinely enjoy in this life. And for many of us, we innocently enough go along with society just because it's the easy path. So we might sign up for a gym membership in order to look good for the summer season, or we might emulate a certain fashion trend just because it's very popular and a lot of friends are doing it, or we might go to a certain nightlife area in your local city because that's the hip spot where everyone's going, right? So we follow along with these a lot of different trends, even picking out a career just because it's well respected by others rather than following your own unique path in life. These are just some examples where initially we know why we're doing it in order to get a certain result or certain approval from society. But what happens over time is that we eventually lose ourselves within the certain tasks that we do. And then eventually that certain reality becomes a part of our life and we don't even question it anymore. So that certain activity that you're taking on just becomes a part of you, in quotation marks. But this will actually feel, the ironic part is that this will actually feel very alien to you, and you'll feel that you don't quite belong in that certain reality. So if this is a certain career path, you might feel that this is a part of you, you've been doing it for many years, but it just feels like it's a struggle for you, or that you're listening to a certain type of music or hanging out with a group of people because you want to fit in. But in reality, you'll notice that those people kind of avoid you and you don't know why. And for them, they can't really put their finger on it as to why they're not connecting with you. But in reality, it's because you've abandoned your authentic self and you're trying to put on this certain mask of trying to be approved by others. And this is not something they are obviously going to tell you straight up, but rather this is something that is felt in the energy, because something about yourself where you don't feel totally at ease with yourself because you're putting on this front, and you yourself feel like you're constantly struggling at whatever that you're doing because it's not something that you genuinely enjoy because you're going along with society. So when you're following someone else's ideas and trends of society of what you should be doing, it'll always feel like an uphill battle, even if you get well accustomed to it. And this is why you should rather follow your own bliss and your own path in life to find authenticity and approval from yourself. And then from there, you can start to create a life around yourself rather than attaching to other things in the world around you. So I'm going to be sharing you my personal stories as far as how I started initially following the trends and how I discovered that I was really unhappy doing that. And then I started to kind of find my own path, and I'm going to be describing how I do that. But the main question you really want to ask yourself in terms of figuring out whether you personally like something or whether you're just following along with the society is to ask yourself the question, would I genuinely and willingly be doing this certain activity or following this certain trend if I were by myself and if I were alone? So let that just sink in for you. So if you were completely by yourself, would you still be participating in that activity, whether it's a certain sport or going to a certain area of your city or doing a certain activity, taking a career path? Would you be doing these certain things if you were by yourself? And that's the main question you want to ask yourself. So now a story time. So back in high school, I remember this was when the whole house music trend was becoming very popular, in EDM music, the electronic dance music, and also the like kind of preppy fashion that came along with it. So I was growing up in the East Coast in America, New Jersey, so that was very popular at the time. And I found myself trying to adapt to the certain trend because I saw that a lot of people in my school were starting to listen to that kind of music and were also dressing in that same kind of fashion that was associated with that culture. So I went out and got some boat shoes and chinos and used to wear button downs to school almost every day. And I was kind of emulating myself in order to fit in with a certain group. And for a time, it actually worked where I was connecting with different people. I would, look up the latest artists I was playing. I think at the time it was like deadmau5 and Tiesto and all these different, house artists. And I would go along and make conversations with them, with different people in my school, and I'd hang out with the group that used to listen to them. And, in my spare time, I would spend time going on websites like Beatport and finding out who the latest artist was. But meanwhile, I found myself not actually listening to the music when I wasn't interacting with that group. As you may know by now, I'm huge into rock. I like rock music. I saw Korn last week. So that was always authentic to myself, and that's something I was always into from, ever since I was really young. But I had kind of abandoned that to follow this certain trend of fading in and listening to house music. And what I found was, like I mentioned before, is that the group of friends, although they liked me, they didn't accept me all the way. And they kind of felt that there was something a bit off about me that seemed very inauthentic. And I also felt that I was also fighting an uphill battle of, listening to music that I don't like in order to fit in with a certain group. And that's kind of how I felt this like clash and struggle, this internal struggle where I wasn't really fitting in. And this is kind of the reason why. So that's when I was like, okay, screw this. I'm going to go back and listen to the music I like to do and dress in my own sense of fashion. So that's when I did a 160 or a 180 rather, and I turned around and started to dress like how I like to dress and more like a rock fashion. And all of a sudden I started to attract new people. So this was like the law of attraction, where I started to make more friends that were more attuned to my interests, where I didn't try to, fight for it. And it obviously came a lot easier for me this time around because I felt that now that I wasn't trying as hard, people came up to me and they sensed that I was very comfortable with my skin. So that was one social example, and I'll give you one related to working out and exercise. So weightlifting is a very common activity that a lot of people get into, and especially when they're young. They have a lot of reasons. Obviously apart from health reasons, a lot of people try to look good. But the thing about weightlifting is that a lot of times people go into it with the intention to look good or impress other people. So the focus is not on their own health, which is, what you should be focusing on, but rather to look good for, someone else. And I remember at the time, during my teenage years, I was trying to lift weights to look good for a lot of different girls in my school. And I was like, yeah, I'm like super buff. And I actually did that for a couple of years, and I did, get in pretty good shape. But one thing about that is that I particularly actually did not like or enjoy the process of lifting weights and all of that. So I found myself kind of dragging myself to the gym every day and, really forcing myself to do that. And like I was mentioning earlier, where you adapt to things, I had started going to the gym more often. I signed up for membership. I actually started to make friends within a certain gym. So now my entire friend group has started to shift to people that enjoy going to the gym. And this is obviously a great thing, but the problem is I wasn't actually authentically into that. And I started to notice over time, I would certainly go to the gym with friends, but then I asked myself, would I actually go there if I was by myself? So like maybe on an off day when everyone else was doing something else, would I just go there randomly at, Friday at 7 p.m.? Answer would actually probably be no. So that's what I started to realize. And it actually took me years to realize that, okay, I don't actually like this as much. So then I started to look at other activities I may enjoy. And I found a different style of exercise, which is martial arts. It was something I was interested in, but I never really dove all the way in. And I recently started doing that again. And I found myself really connecting with that certain school and everything about it. And it was more up my alley, so to speak. Now let's fast forward a couple years later. So now I'm in my early 20s. I've got my first 9-to-5 job, and I was, moved to a new city. So what are some things that you would do, as a person in the early 20s? You probably go to different bars, right? So you'll find that every major city has a certain like nightlife area or certain like spots or a few different streets where people would just go out within the same age group. And these are just bars that the majority of people that would find very interesting and would like going to. So for example, when I was living in San Francisco, this was the Polk Street area or the Marina District. When I was living in Arizona, this was Old Town Scottsdale in Scottsdale, Arizona, or Mill Avenue in Tempe. And now I live here in Austin, and this is 6th Street in Austin, or the Domain sometimes. And with these areas, these are the quote-unquote socially acceptable places to go out to, and this is where quote-unquote everyone, and I put that in quotation marks, goes out to. And this is like the trendy spots where people go to normally on a Friday or Saturday night. And I found myself going along with it. So I go to these loud clubs and loud bars where people were just like spilling drinks everywhere and the music was loud. And if you probably followed my channel for a while, you've probably guessed that I'm a bit more introverted. I like more one-on-one interactions, more low-key interactions. I definitely like my craft beers, and here you are at these very trendy areas where they serve beer in plastic cups and they're really cheap and they spill everywhere. So definitely wasn't my environment, but I started to go there every week because this was the thing to do, right? So this was something that society was telling me, this is what people in their 20s would do, and this is where people go out. And this is kind of like the norm. So you'll talk to anyone you meet on the street and like, what do you like to do? And they're like, I like to go on 6th Street here in Austin, the trendy spot. So it starts to kind of become like a part of your reality where you'll notice that everyone will start to talk about this certain thing and you're like, okay, let's go check it out. But it might not be right for you. And that's something I realized. So then I did this experiment, like I was mentioning, where I said, okay, I'm going to go by myself to what social areas I like to go to or events, and I'm going to go there by myself. And I'm going to see whether I actually enjoy it or whether it's because my friends have invited me or this is the thing to do on a weekend. And the way to do this experiment is to first go to the place you normally go to or the events you normally go to and go there by yourself and see if you actually enjoy it. So I actually did that. So next Friday, after kind of coming up with this experiment, I went to the same place I went to last week. And I was by myself. I didn't know anyone there. And I just walked around. And I found myself not having fun. And it's also kind of eye-opening as well, because when you're doing this sober as well, and you don't have to like, numb yourself or force yourself to have fun with drinking or doing other things, you go there completely sober, you realize, okay, what did I actually like about this? Probably nothing. It's probably because my friends had invited me over to this place. So then I kind of went on my own adventure and I found some places I would go to just by myself and I would actually enjoy it a lot. And that actually was like, okay, wow, I found my little niche here in the city. So this would include places like, tea places or craft beer places or rock bars. Those would be my things I like to go to, or yoga studios. And I found myself, what's ironic is that before, like I was mentioning, when you try to go to these environments where you don't feel that is authentic to you, you're constantly like pushing and trying to make things work, but nothing seems to happen and it seems like an uphill battle. But the ironic part is when you go to these events that are more aligned with yourself, you'll find that things are a lot easier for you. And there's probably a reason subconsciously why you choose these places that you like, because you probably have these natural inclinations or strengths that are actually valued in these environments. So when I go to a yoga place, for example, my calmness and my chillness is actually encouraged and supported there. Meanwhile, if I was going to like a loud bar or club, my same exact chillness, which is a part of me, is actually seen as a detriment. So it's interesting how that works. The same qualities that would make you, well-liked and well-respected in one area will actually make you seem as someone who is kind of weird and, doesn't fit in another area. So it's all about finding your certain skill sets and what you like, your natural strengths, your interests, and aligning yourself with that once you detach from society and seeing where you fit in. And when you do this experiment, you'll actually be very surprised as to what things that don't feel really authentic to you, and what things you were doing all your life. It could even be many years that you're just doing on autopilot because it's become a part of you, which you didn't actually enjoy yourself. So again, this experiment is a process of finding yourself, and the way to do that is to take at least a week, 2 weeks, even a month, a couple months, as I did, to go out by yourself and do things you would naturally have an inclination to do, things you would naturally enjoy, and go by yourself to see whether you personally like it or whether the place you're going to was because you were influenced by society, a parent or a friend or someone else in society. And then from there, you'll start to go there more often, so start to frequent that place more often or frequent that activity or wear that certain style that you personally like. And you'll find that as you start to change and become more comfortable with your skin, you'll start to attract more people that like you for you. So you're removing those extra superficial layers that you've artificially created for yourself by, faking it and trying to fit in. And when you remove those walls, you'll find that people actually appreciate you and like you just for yourself. And that's actually more rewarding than anything. And that's like the biggest lesson here, is because you'll gain a lot of confidence from that, because you'll find out people actually like you for yourself, and you don't have to put on a show. You don't have to try to fit in or try to do something that is inauthentic for yourself. But again, this takes on the journey of self-discovery, and the way to do that is first by isolation and also discernment. Try to see what is right for you through the period of explanation. So I hope you found this very helpful, and let me know if you like similar talks like this. Thank you.